All right, here we go. OverDrive, off and running. TSN 1050 on the TSN app, your home smart speaker. Bryan Hayes, O-Dog, Jeff O'Neill, Jamie Noodles McLennan. How we feeling?
What's up? I got something for you guys.
You got something for us. What do you got?
I got something. Well, I do because, well, before we get to last night's win, and that was a great game, all of that type of stuff. I'm not going to say his name because I don't want him kicked out of the Italian neighborhood. But he texts me, and he goes, I do believe in Hayes and trust him in his lasagna making. However, I did become nervous when I heard him say he uses cottage cheese. And then he writes,
what?
Italians are full of...
Finish. Go ahead.
Let me finish, though. Italians are so full of himself. Now, he's a big Italian guy. But he goes, if Gordon Ramsay was making us butter chicken or pesto penne, you don't think it would be awesome? So basically, he's throwing you in with Gordon Ramsay and saying, like, Hayes makes great lasagna. You don't have to be Italian to make great lasagna.
Wow.
So he believes in you, but he's concerned about
with the one ingredient
the
that I
word
let out.
cheese.
I should have never announced an
Hazy
ingredient.
Kara chirped you too. She threw out a hashtag amateur hour. She said this guy uses cottage cheese. Hashtag amateur hour.
Well, that's arrogant, and I don't recall ever seeing Kara's lasagna, and I've never seen anyone pump the tires of her lasagna or anybody else's lasagna. I didn't bring up this topic yesterday. Oh,
dude, it's a secret recipe anyway.
Right, I'm not getting into anything, and maybe that's a curveball. Maybe there is cottage cheese. Maybe
there
there's
isn't.
Not. It's none of anybody's business. The fact of the matter is,
I like cottage cheese. I think if it's
it's a brilliant ingredient, Noodles.
Hey?
And how often do you know what gets baked into any dish you go to? You look at the menu, you say that'll work.
Right.
You bring it out. If your palate agrees with it, your palate agrees with it. And the fact of the matter is, you guys have had my lasagna, and it was 100% agreeable. So,
and we're worldly people, and we've been all over, and we voted yours the best.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, I appreciate the support. I love the unnamed source. That's amazing. I appreciate that. Me and Gordon Ramsay, same type of attitude.
He's a friend of the show. He works.
Friend of the show.
He works with us, friend of the show, but I don't want to divulge his name just in case there's backlash from the Italian community on him. So I don't want to divulge his name. That's all.
Yeah,
he's a big fan.
I'm getting, messages from different people. Like Carlo was sending me text that he was receiving from his
what
friends.
Is he saying? Let's hear
exactly. I'm like, what do you want me to do? Like, he's getting texts from his buddies saying, you got to tell Hayes and and Noodles to shut up about this, as if we're going to listen.
No, we won't shut up.
Yeah, we're not. Of course we're not going to shut up. It's our show, and this is the way it's going to work. And I'll take on all comers, man. Anyone that wants a piece, you can take on the champ. I've already issued a challenge to Kara. Naturally, she didn't respond with an acceptance.
I bet you haven't heard one peep from her.
Nothing. She's got my number, all my socials, everything. I mean, Kara,
I was on a
Wagland, and others
Kijiji
can
mission
reach out.
today out in your parts, and she never showed up for lunch. None of that.
Great to see you. And I, we've got like a lunch date going every couple of weeks. It's a real thing we have going on.
This one was by complete... I had to buy something on Kijiji, address Whitby. I text Hazy B, want to grab some lunch right around the corner from his house. So we met up, had a great lunch, probably said 4 words to each other, and then I left. It was great.
Well, this is what I loved, and I appreciated the aftermath once we went through it. So I got there first, and I naturally sit at a table. I kind of go wherever I'm led, you know what I mean? Like you get there, and it's a maitre d' or whatever, and it's like, hey, table for 2, all right, here we go. Sends me a note. He goes, make sure you're at the bar. Like, make sure you belly up at the bar. And I'm like, all right, yeah. I guess
he writes, he gets all confused. He's like, I'm at a table, though. It's like, just go to the bar. That's where dudes, that's where they eat lunch.
And it's way better, especially for a lunch thing like that, because we're watching the tournament. Madness started. We're watching Sports Center. The tournament's on. I'm like, this is perfect. We don't need to be staring at each other. Let's sit at the bar, have lunch, watch the games. It was beautiful. It worked out perfectly. We said what we had to say. We got out of there, and it was great, man. Yeah. And everything's all good, and it's good to have the tournament going. I don't know where it's going. I mean, I'm sure you guys saw Shannon Sharp was getting crushed online because on First Take he took the number 1 seed to make it to the finals in all 4 regions on the men's side and the women's side. 8 for 8, the one seed,
awesome.
Which is just incredible, and naturally has a 0% chance of happening, or feels like it. It never breaks that way.
Let me ask you this, Hazy B. Do you think Shohei Ohtani watches the tournament?
Oh.
I think he does. I think Shohei's very familiar with that tournament. And you talk about a water cooler topic.
Oh, my.
This is wild, Shohei Ohtani.
Oh, my God.
It's one of the crazier stories, a bombshell. Oh, you called me last night. You're like, that's not a coincidence. It happened opening day, the news broke. I'm like, I don't think so, man. It's pretty wild that this guy's whole basically debut as a Dodger is happening at 3 a.m. Pacific time in Seoul, South Korea to begin with. So if you're a Dodger fan, you're probably not even watching him play. And let's say you got up late, noon Pacific time. By that time, the news had basically broken that not only had Ohtani already debuted for the Dodgers, but now there's a bombshell that his interpreter is in deep with a bookie. And the story changed over the course of 48 hours, where the interpreter originally spoke with ESPN, I believe the LA Times, and said, I was in a tough spot. Ohtani's my guy. He hooked me up, and he helped me pay for these gambling debts. 2 days later, it turns to, actually, no, he didn't. You're fired, and you stole from him. And now the cat's out of the bag, and I just cannot imagine where this story is going to go next. But I know it's not going to disappear. As much as baseball wants it to, Rob Manfred wants it to, the Dodgers want it to.
Rob Manfred's the guy that's got him. He can't come out and say whatever. He's got to answer some questions, and because everybody is having conspiracy theories now and blasting out what they think happened here. Like, he's got to just come out and say something other than what he has, because he can.
Wow.
It's just he can't let it sit and let people go on shows like this and spew what they think, which I'm not going to do, because God knows. I know what it looks like, though. It looks like I don't care how tight you are with somebody.
Yeah.
If somebody, I tweeted out last night, if Al's brother asked me for $4 million for gambling, sorry, bud, we're buddies, but that's just stretches the limit there. You walk away.
Yeah, it's a crazy amount of money.
It is.
And you cannot qualify that or try to somehow downplay it by saying, yeah, but he's Ohtani and he makes all that money. It's $4.5 million.
And how dumb is he to wire money in his name on the guy's behalf? I mean, I was in my 20s and I had to take care of a few things, and I knew that there didn't have to be a paper trail.
There cannot be a paper trail.
Are you kidding me?
There cannot be a paper trail.
I'm a redneck from King City, and I know no paper trail.
Right.
And this guy's shooting somebody 4 sheets? No way, man.
That is the definition of a cash transaction.
Yes.
Like, we meet and there is cash being
Christy
handed over.
Pitts.
Yes.
Yeah, it is. I mean, what can come of this? I don't want to speculate, but like, can he get clipped for games? Like, what do you make of all this?
I think it's way too premature to know where it's going to go next or what it means, for his legacy or his career. I mean, the news just broke less than 24 hours ago, and the stories have already changed. I mean, his interpreter, who by all accounts is his best friend, was in the dugout yesterday. Like, they were laughing it up in the dugout, game 1 over in South Korea.
Fired.
And then an hour or two later, he's fired, and the world's supposed to believe that he's fired because he screwed over Ohtani. I think most people are really skeptical, and yes, gullible, but not that gullible, not born yesterday. So I think if you're Major League Baseball, the best case scenario is Ohtani. I mean, it's possible he got duped, but again, based on what I've read today, and I've seen a number of threads and articles from people involved in the banking world, they're like,
"What do you mean duped? Duped by who? The interpreter?"
Yeah, I mean, like if like Ohtani's lawyer is suggesting this was stolen, like the money was stolen, and based again on what I've read with regulations and banking regulations, the idea of, do you know how hard that is to steal $4.5 million out of someone's account?
Dude, I've told you before. Somebody was ripping me off in Carolina, but it was for $3,000. She was putting her husband's dry cleaning in with mine and junk like that and paying her brother who's a landscaper more than he should. $4 million?
Right.
How you dupe a dude out of $4 million is insane.
And this is a wire, right? Like, this is a wired account. This is wired money.
It's a paper trail.
There's a paper trail to a seedy individual. I mean, let's call it what it is, too, right? Like, this isn't going to Amazon Inc. This is some guy, that's a bookie. That's
Joe Colombo. It's a guy with a tracksuit on.
Exactly. And that's obviously how the feds initially got involved. But I think if you're baseball, best case scenario, if, outside of the idea that he actually did get ripped off, but I find that very hard to believe, especially considering, again, they were friendly in the dugout yesterday, was that Ohtani's just a really good guy, and he helped his buddy out, and his buddy was in a bad place, and his buddy wasn't betting on baseball. Where this gets sticky is if baseball was involved at all in any capacity. And I don't know how you find that out, but what I would say is this bookie, he's going to speak at some point, and I'll bet you he's salivating to sell this story.
Salivating.
This screams a book called Ohtani's Bookie out next fall. And, this guy is
I never thought of that angle,
Hayes.
Because if this guy, who's probably as greasy as can be, no disrespect, but if it's actually Ohtani laying bets with this cat, watch out, man.
Right.
Because this guy will come out swinging.
And he's got
fences.
receipts on what was being bet on, how much they're and $4.5 million is a massive amount of money. And this is why, again, the idea that his interpreter, I don't know how much money he's got. I don't know how much he gets paid. But off the beaten path bookies are not allowing a client to go that deep in the hole unless they feel they can get the money back, right? They're not allowing you to go $2 million in, $3 million, $4 million in, unless
especially
they
when
know
you're
going to
pay. They know it's not like you're filling out an application. But if it was the interpreter, he would have an understanding that his occupation was interpreter.
Right.
He's not making enough bank to get that to him.
Exactly. And that's where Ohtani gets implicated here. And his name, it's literally his account. So at a minimum, the reports are out courtesy of The Athletic today that baseball's not investigating. That to me is asinine. That's not possible. Because if, he got fired, the interpreter got fired today. So is he not innocent until proven guilty, though? It's just understood he definitely stole the funds? And is he falling on the sword now? These are where the conspiracy theories all come into play. And what makes it so layered and so fascinating for me. But I don't know. I don't see how baseball doesn't push forward with this and at least look into it. And if he did steal the funds, we will know definitively because the banks and the FBI will find out, I would assume. Yes. Well, the interpreter will say, I am guilty. This is what I did. But 2 or 3 days ago, he was doing interviews with ESPN saying, no, Shohei gave me the money. So I don't know, man. It's a wild, wild story.
I'll tell you what, Hazy, if I was the interpreter and I was approached to go down for this, I would say, look, man, I'll take the hit. I'll go to jail for a year, but when I come out, there better be 100 cheats in my bank account.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that is... Again, where everyone's mind is going. If he's falling on the sword here, even if he was driving it, but he's trying to save Ohtani because Ohtani's implicated. Again, at a basic level, if you pay a bookie, that's illegal, and that's where I understand where people are going with legalized gambling and all that. And my point on it always was, once it's legalized and it's on the books, it's regulated. That's why these massive gambling companies like FanDuel and others, they know when Calvin Ridley or Shane Pinto, when they know it's your account. They know to say, hey, something's going on here, a player in the league. When it's a bookie and off the books, that's when it's unregulated. That's when extortion can come into play, right? The massive companies, these are massive international companies. They're not extorting people because of bets. They're just taking bets and paying out bets or whatever. The bookie is a completely different world. And that's where I think Major League Baseball's got to get to the bottom of this, and I have to believe they will.
Rob Manfred's got to come out and answer some questions so people just don't speculate. He has to get out in front of it and sit and answer 20 questions about this.
But let me ask you guys this, though. Don't you think if they don't have a problem with it, don't you think they might have been sitting on this story for a week or two?
Possibly,
They might have done the due diligence, because you always hear like something comes out. You could argue, bring it back to the Shane Pinto situation. I would argue that Ottawa probably knew a couple weeks before it got put out, before the suspension came out. So would the league, I guess, let's bring it to Ohtani and his interpreter, would the league know about this? What's weird is, like you said, they're laughing it up in the dugout, and then all of a sudden 2 hours later, they're like, got to drop the hammer on this. So maybe that's where kind of the rubber hits the road. They might have known about this for weeks, but then something had to give yesterday.
I think that's exactly it, Noodles, because it would have been so easy to tell the interpreter, you're not going to South Korea. You can't be around this guy. We know what's going on. We're going to flush this out. The story's coming. ESPN, the LA Times, they've warned us. The FBI, this is coming. You can't be around. Meanwhile, the guys in the dugout yesterday lapping it up, and then all of a sudden, a few hours later, sorry, you stole and you're fired and you're gone. Yeah, it's like, I'd love to know what Pete Rose is thinking right now, what Shohei's thinking, what the Dodgers are thinking.
Rose.
Well, how about the Blue Jays?
And the Blue Jays.
How about the Blue Jays?
The Blue Jays would still take him in a heartbeat. They'd hire the interpreter back. They'd say, we'll pick up the debt. If you're any other team, you're like, we'll pick up whatever we got to. We'll take Ohtani. We could use the help right now. But Pete Rose, this is where the internet never loses. We all saw some just incredible content last night and today on What's Up with Ohtani and the interpreter. And, I saw something on Pete Rose. He's like 4,228 hits, but 0 interpreters to take the fall, and stuff like that is just flying.
Oh, my God. People would have a field day with that, man.
Oh, field day. But anyway, Bill Shakin will join us of the LA Times, in a couple of hours. We'll get his take on where this goes from here, and we'll continue to filter through it. Frankie Corrado coming up later in the hour. New dad, who it is.
Nice.
Frankie C. Yeah.
Yeah.
The Leafs with what a game that was last night, because I think if you're all about goal scoring and entertainment and storylines, you basically had everything last night.
If you're a Leaf fan.
Yeah, but even if you're a Caps fan, I don't think – yes, they want to make the playoffs now because they've gone this far, but Ovi got his 2 goals.
Yeah.
Look at what Strome did last night. Could you make it more obvious that this whole thing is about Ovechkin catching Gretzky? I've never seen a pass like
100%.
that in my life than what Strome did last night.
He was center of the net, and McCabe was kind of lying down or whatever McCabe was doing, and he still got it to him. It was, hey, it's great to see. And like I said, I've had kind of friendly discussions with a premier goal scorer in the NHL who swore to me that he's going to end up with 26 to 30, and I'm like, no way. This was when he had 5, and sure as hell, this guy's going to get 26 to 30.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you one thing. I give Sheldon Keefe some credit, a lot of credit, because you saw it. As much as I disagree with the captain being scratched, and Sean Couturier, by the way, is going to be scratched again for a second time, you might as well take the C off his jersey now, because that's basically useless and out the window. But Sheldon Keefe, you could see the intensity in which they were playing with last night, and there was almost like a jolt through the locker room saying, I'm not putting up with this garbage anymore. And I mean, that was the standard National Hockey League effort they put forth last night, but you could tell it was just a great response, and we called it yesterday that they were going to respond, and that's how you do it. And the dog days of the season where a majority of the players are fat and happy, they got guaranteed contracts, it's like sometimes you got to wake them up, and he did that, and he got the response.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did.
I agree. I thought that it was I think it was the perfect game from both sides. Matthews scores, 16 seconds in, so he gets off to Schneider right away and establishes his game. Then Ovi gets 2. Matthews should have had a hat trick. Obviously, you're offside by a whisker. But they had a dominant performance. And to me, then you also get a scenario where Ovi gets 2 goals, and that's what Washington's all about. So I thought it was kind of the perfect night for the National Hockey League. And I know the Capitals want to make the playoffs, but it was exactly what both organizations wanted last night.
Yeah, and I mean, Matthews has a 5-point game. Max Domi, a lot of buzz about that. I liked this game a lot last night. I thought Max looked really good. It's a huge opportunity for him. He's no dummy. He knows. Like, he knows. He's trying to latch on to AM34, and he should, and he looked good last night. Bertuzzi, I guess, was sick early in the game, which was strange. He didn't play, but he was just sitting on the bench, and then eventually got out there and he performed well. But even, John Tavares, I saw his stats earlier today, his last 3 games, got 3 goals, 5 assists, and 8 points. Like, that's significant because they've moved him back up the lineup. Like, last night was a feel-good night. Joseph Woll needed that. He needed a win. He made some really big stops early in that game and kind of all across the board. And if you're TJ Brodie, that's a separate conversation. We'll find out what happens on Saturday. I presume he goes back in.
I don't.
You don't think he's going to go back in?
I don't. I really don't. I think sometimes you have to weigh a bunch of different things. And the question is, does he have elevated in him as of right now? And I think sometimes you just got to say, I like the way the lineup looked and I'm going with it again. Like, there's all these different factors that go in on how you handle these situations, but I'm not changing that lineup the way they played last night. And coaches think differently because coaches will be like, I got to get him back in there to prove that he's, wants to respond. And there's the Couturier situation where it's like, I like the way the team played and I'm not changing the lineup. So we'll see where Keefe goes with that.
You got 3 and 4 too. Like, if he doesn't go in Saturday, maybe it's Sunday because of an injury or a resting situation. So you do have the luxury that there's the next night, right? Like, so it's not like it's Saturday and they don't play again till Wednesday. So if you go with the same lineup Saturday, you can say, hey, you know what? We're just going with the same lineup. You can actually sell that to Brodie and say, take another peek from the stands type of thing. But because there's a game Sunday on the road. So I think there's different scenarios that Sheldon could go with. I don't think it's guaranteed he goes back in. It's not like, well, I didn't think Timmins was, awesome or anything like that. It's more about, I think, the message to Brodie and the team. That's what I got out of it. It's more like, and I said this yesterday, TJ Brodie, for them to have success, go deep into the playoffs, what you need is depth on the back end, like guys 7, 8, 9 guys who can play, because that's what teams always get deeper into your roster the deeper you go. You need him feeling good about his game. Is it 1 game? Is it 2 games? What O's saying? Like, maybe it is. Like, Couturier is a different scenario. I think Torts is doubling down, saying I liked how my team played against Toronto. I'm not changing anything, or I'm going to be superstitious about it. This is a different scenario. I think the Leafs are in a different spot than Philly, so you kind of have a little bit of house money to play with it when it comes to TJ.
Yeah, I agree, and I think Keefe is in a different position than Tortorella, where Tortorella is still he's wearing one shoe that's competitive and let's be on it and we're trying to win. And the other shoe all year has been, this is a big picture thing, win culture and how we're going to operate as Philadelphia Flyers. They sold at the deadline. So he's kind of wearing, 2 different hats here, where Keefe is not. Like, Keefe is focused on winning in the playoffs. And Philly's not guaranteed to get there. The Leafs know they're getting there. So also the context of the team, the attitude of the coach, Tortorella can be vindictive, or not vindictive. I mean, I think he likes his guys, supports his guys. I don't get the impression like he's a bad guy, but he tries to put forth a front, or does put forth a front, like it's my operation, I run it, this is the way it works. Right. Where Keefe has not had that same mantra in the past. So I wouldn't expect Keefe to take a page completely out of the book of Tortorella's, but we'll find out come Saturday night. It's a big one. Like, it's a massive weekend. We said it yesterday. You had to get the 2 points last night. Like, you got to beat the Washington team when you lose to Philly, because Edmonton's coming in, and then Carolina's on Sunday. Like, those are 2 of the 5 or 6 best teams in the league right now. So
and you got a big weekend Carolina coming Sunday?
At Carolina. Yeah, and a quick turnaround. I think a 6 p.m. start. Yeah. After 7 emotional the night before, McDavid's
Have fun with
town.
That one, man.
That's going to be a really tough game, So anyway, we'll get back into what we witnessed last night from the Leafs. A bunch of games in the NHL tonight, including Edmonton in action, Montreal and Vancouver tonight. Frankie Corrado coming up, Craig Berube on the show today. We got Bill Shaken of the LA Times. The tournament starting. Shohei Ohtani's in the news. OverDrive continues, TSN 1050 and on the TSN app. OverDrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Jays news coming in. I guess, Mark Shapiro spoke earlier. A couple of quotes that causing some people to raise an eyebrow or two. I'll tell you about that a little bit later on. But John Schneider has, I guess, told Bowden Francis that he made the team, and he will start the year in the rotation, which means, to no one's surprise, Alek Manoah will not be a part of that. Sounds like Gausman is still working towards, starting a season as a member of the rotation. He might have to have an IL stent. They might have to figure that out. But I guess Swanson played catch today. Sounds like he felt pretty good. Romano's a day or two away from resuming throwing. I don't know. We're getting close. We're a week away. It's opening day a week from today. But that concludes the Alek Manoah story. Like, if you're wondering, news is in. The guy's not on the team. He's not making the team. And whenever he recovers to a point where he's pitching again, I don't see a scenario where they just put him back on it. Like, I think he goes to the minors and has to prove he could pitch, because that hasn't been concluded. Like, forget health. You have to prove you can pitch. So
let me just get this straight. How many spring training games is there left?
Not many. We got a week to go. What are they?
So he's not going in any of these games coming up.
I don't believe so. I think it's a side session. He's gonna do like a batting practice type thing tomorrow, and then if that goes well, he's at least 4 or 5 days away from pitching. Maybe he pitches towards the last spring training game, which I believe is Monday or Tuesday, but I doubt it. I mean, if he's doing a live BP tomorrow, I would guess the next time he plays in live action, it's either the minor leagues, the complex league. I don't know where it's going to be, but I can't imagine a scenario where it's in the major leagues. It can't be. He's got to prove he can pitch. Yeah, the complex league would not ideal. I don't even know if it's available this early in the year. But there you go. So more on the Jays as we get closer to opening day. Again, a week today. It's go time for the Jays.
Crazy stuff with that. Like, it just. You saw the first look in training camp and trimmed down, got the new beard, and it's like a different vibe. Goes out there and hits 3 guys, and then it's game over. It's like, what a weird year for the guy. Like,
yeah, exactly. This time last year, obviously, we had no idea of what was coming.
No
idea that
we were talking Cy Young and going into Yankee Stadium and yelling at Garrett Cole in the Yankees dugout.
Right.
Not what happened.
And it was game 1. He was the opening day starter. Like,
yes.
Hey, got the ball.
365 days ago, this guy, if you had told me he's going to have a 15-year Hall of Fame career or he'd completely fall off the map, I'd put money on 15-year Hall of Fame career. Like, that was the safe bet.
Yeah.
Right? Ohtani's interpreter would have made that bet.
Yeah.
Yes, he would have.
now it's a completely different story. Anyway, we got Craig Berube coming up in about a half an hour, and the Leafs are back in action on the weekend. Lots of games in the NHL tonight. Here's our good buddy Frankie Corrado. What's happening, Frankie?
Not much, boys. The Ohtani interpreter, man, that guy's got an itch that he needs to scratch, doesn't he?
He does, or Ohtani does. That's the question.
One of those two does.
Someone does.
Sure.
Yeah, something happens. Something's going on here between these two.
Oh man,
that's a wild story, and again, that's not going to come to an end anytime soon. But I guess neither is the chase for 70 here with Matthews, and the target moves. And I was on with Jay last night, and it's like that one goal, the offside goal, that's on Bertuzzi. He went offside. That's the rule. Like, it's cut and dry. He's offside. It's so stupid. I've been yelling about it for years. It has nothing to do with the play, and it steals an incredible moment from your superstar scoring a hat trick. But it's neither here nor there. It's out. Yet he still gets 2 last night. I think he's on pace for like 69 now. Where are you at with Matthews, and like a realistic number for you that you believe he can and will reach?
It's got to land somewhere between 65 and 70. Like, I still wouldn't be surprised if it does hit 70 at this point. And there's 2 things that kind of come to light after watching last night's game and the way he scores goals. The first thing, it's amazing what happens when you put him with someone who can pass the puck, a distributor. Like, no offense, but what is Pontus Holmberg doing with Matthews? Like, I get that the best player needs to be the best player and needs to make those around him better. I get all that kind of stuff. But a guy who can score goals the way Matthews does, he needs a distributor. Like, he needs someone who can get him the puck. That's one thing. And then the other thing is he's only going to go cold for so long. And I think that was, on display last night where, It feels like it's a little bit of a cold spell for Matthews, and he's not a guy that needs to carry the puck a lot in a game in order to be very effective. Like, how many times have we seen this season? On his stick, off his stick, back of the net. And, like, that's how quickly he can make you pay. I think what's come along with his game over time has been, the way he can get back in his own zone, separate guys, carry the puck up the ice. But it's not like Matthews needs to have it all night long in order to be really effective. So him having a guy, especially with Marner out of the lineup, and it seems like he's going to be out a little while longer, him having someone who can find him from below the goal line, there's a very good opportunity here for Matthews to hit 70.
Frankie, I think he can get to 70 because if he gets to, let's call it 66 with a couple games left, you might see the Dylan Strome play. You might see guys trying to, and Hayes, you brought it up, the Dylan Strome play. Mitch Marner does that on breakaways sometimes. Didn't he do that for somebody this year?
Yeah,
he did.
Literally?
Mitch Marner does that. How many times have we seen on 2-on-1s? Mitch Marner has a clear shot. He's in the hash marks he's looking to pass.
Yeah.
So I think that's one thing that if he gets close, then guys will be certainly working at it. But, Frankie, where I wanted you to weigh in on was the defensive situation we were talking about right at the start of the show here. Does Sheldon bring TJ Brodie back in, or do you think you go with the same lineup and give him another night's rest, given that Carolina's the next night?
I don't know, Noodles. I think when you have a winning recipe, and it might not last a long time, I think it's an easy excuse to go to the guy that you sat out and said, listen, the team won, team played really well, not going to bring you back in right now. And you kind of just have to respect the fact that the team won a game without you in the lineup, and you put on your good teammate hat and you cheer your team on. The challenge after that becomes, I take a look at a guy like Connor Timmins. He goes in last night. I thought he had a pretty good game, but the hardest thing for a defenseman in the NHL is to do that consistently, like to rack those on top of each other, good game after good game, week after week. And I know there's not that much time left in the regular season, but he does do something different than, the two guys they brought in. And, it seems like with the guys they brought in with Lyubushkin and Edmondson and Benoit already being there is a little bit of redundancy. And when you play a fast team like we saw 2 nights ago against Philadelphia, that gets exposed a little bit. So I think, Noodles, it's an easy kind of baked-in excuse for Sheldon Keefe to say, not going to put you back in just yet, going to see how this thing goes. At some point, though, he is going back in. Whether anyone likes it or not, he makes a lot of money. He's been a big part of the team for a long time, and he would really, really have to put together a string of bad, poor performances in order to become a player that's out of the lineup, unlikely to come back in.
So, Frankie, when you went on your scratch heater in Toronto, did Babs just not even say anything to you? You just
man.
Like, did it get to a point where it's like, don't even bother talking to me?
Pretty much, yeah. So it kind of felt that way. And I'll tell you, so there was one night, it was the second year I was with the team. We were doing a back-to-back, Friday at home, which was rare, and we were playing Saturday night in Pittsburgh. And earlier that week, we got dummied by LA. Like, I'm talking like 7-2, terrible game. And I'm thinking to myself, I got to get in on Friday. Like, there's just no way. Show up Friday, sure enough, not playing. But then we win that game Friday night. And I'm not expecting anything because we finally won a game. He comes up to me after the game. He goes, you're playing tomorrow in Pittsburgh. I said, oh, okay, great. Played that game in Pittsburgh. Had a pretty good game. We ended up losing that game. And then I kind of like I was seeking out DJ Smith the next day. I'm like, hey, why don't we go over some clips, see what we got to work on, and we'll go from there. And good old Babsy walked into the office afterwards, towards the end of our little chit chat. He goes, yeah, so team lost, lineup's got to change. That's just the way it is. I didn't say anything because I was just a young guy. I was just a young guy at the time. Like, I'm 23 years old, but
it's
I felt
your
like
fault.
saying, do you realize we lose a lot of games and you never change the lineup? So the one game that we lost, I'm in the lineup. Now you got to change it, and you're pulling that card. Anyways, that was kind of the way it went for me there.
Yeah, that I love that. Wow, we lost. We have to make a change. Oh, really? I'm the guy. You can't
you're
change
the guy.
anybody else.
Tuesday we got dummied by LA. I didn't see you looking to change the lineup then.
Right. How about Tom Wilson last night acting as if it was an accident that he smacked Noah Gregor?
What the hell
with that high stick?
What the hell was he doing?
He malfunctioned.
It was just a weird play. I love Tommy Wilson, but you got to have control of your stick.
We all do.
He's good. Did it on purpose.
He's gonna get clipped for that, man.
Of course, it's an in-person,
games,
which is wild.
It's an in-person. That's 5 games.
Yeah,
like that's.
But like for him to do the bear hug and oh wow, what was that? Sorry, man. Like, come on, Tom. Like that's. Yeah, it almost would have been better if he just said, screw it, you got me, I did it. And Gregor's not going to respond because he's like, that's Tom Wilson. What am I going to do? Drop my
That's
glove
exactly, guys. I don't know if you agree. That's exactly what Trouba did in New York. The fact that wasn't suspended is insanity. Like, for anyone to defend that, what Trouba did and said he was falling back in an accident is lunacy, man.
I think
it was
the
same
there
play.
was that he missed him, technically. I guess he got the top of his head.
And
but,
hit
or wherever. I hear what you're saying.
Tomahawk chop just barely missed the guy's head. Like, I didn't like the Tom Wilson thing last night, and in no way, shape, or form could you sell to me that was an accident. And when he goes into that hearing, I have no idea how he's going to justify that was accidental or a hockey play, which is such a buzzword that we hear now when it comes to these kinds of suspensions. But I really think, like, yes, it probably was on purpose. He definitely got his wires crossed, and it was quick thinking for him to say, oh, let me grab this guy, give him a little bear hug to kind of soften the blow. But that's the quickest call that George Parros is ever going to have to make because this guy's got a rap sheet that's one of, if not the longest in the NHL. So he's going to get clipped big time for that. It reminded me of, there was a play years ago where Duncan Keith, he kind of lassoed his stick into the face of Jeff Carter in the neutral zone in a playoff game. I don't know if you guys remember that, but Duncan Keith was one of those guys. He would get his wires crossed every once in a while. That's the play that comes to mind for me. That was one playoff game, but this will be way more. And it was definitely not an accident last night. And you can't say that he was falling or losing his momentum. Like it was a reckless play.
Remind me, is he, because what is it? Your record kind of cleans up after 18 months, right? Is he found, he's a repeat offender, but is it in the last?
I think technically he's actually off the books, but still it's an in-person hearing, so he's likely going to get.
That's 5 or more. He's getting it. And to me, it's a reckless play. And we are seeing, Morgan Rielly, I know different stories and all that, different scenarios, but if that's the standard they're talking about in 5 games and stuff like that with sticks around the head, then they got to be consistent with it. That wasn't a hockey play, to your point, Frankie. Like that was, and we all love Tommy, and I'm sure everyone wants him on your team, but that was a reckless play, unfortunately.
He knew it too.
Now, yeah. I wonder now with the timing of that play, they just had the GM meeting. Parros was there. We saw Gino interviewing him, and he kind of made the point that, I take more beatings now doing this job than I did when I was playing. I wonder what the dialogue was inside those rooms with him and the GMs. Is there more of an appetite to suspend guys? Is there more of an appetite to show a little more consistency? I don't know, if you're a GM and you're all kind of having these conversations together, it seems like as a group they don't want players missing substantial time. So maybe the suspensions haven't been as harsh as we would think. But I don't know. It's weird timing coming out of those meetings because who knows what was talked about in there and what the appetite is within the group of GMs for how harsh they want suspensions to be now.
Yeah, and Tom Wilson, we'll see where that goes for him and also the Caps for that matter because, every night counts, and they're trying to battle their way in. Philly, the Islanders have a massive game tonight. Islanders, Detroit, in Detroit. That's a big game. Ooh. So a lot on the docket tonight. Enjoy it, Frankie, and we'll do it again soon. Thank you, buddy.
All right, boys. Talk soon.
Frankie Corrado. That game tonight, that's going to be big. Detroit Islanders, someone's got to win. I know Detroit, they won the other night. They came back and beat Columbus in overtime, but the Islanders have lost 5 in a row, and Detroit's fighting for their lives, and you got a lot going on in the NHL right now. So Craig Berube will join us in about 20 minutes. Darren Dreger still to come later this afternoon, as well as we continue to look back on the Leaf win last night. The Raptors got smoked at home. the Shohei Ohtani story, and Schneider speaking, Shapiro speaking down in Florida on where the Jays are going to go a week from today, opening day. Overdrive continues, TSN 1050 online, tsn1050.ca. All right, Craig Berube coming up. His take on how Sheldon Keefe could handle this TJ Brodie situation moving forward. Sean Couturier out again for Philly tonight. John Tortorella will not answer anything on Sean. Will not talk about Sean Couturier.
And he makes such a point about it, like he's just like, I'm not talking about. I don't know. It's just it's
Belichickian. Like it's Popovichian. It's Tortorellian. They're all the same.
It's like in this day and age, when you make a transaction like that within your own team, and then you come out and you just say, I'm not talking about that. It's like, okay, man.
Yeah, okay. Exactly. But don't act surprised. People are curious as to why your captain's still out.
Like he gives off the vibe. It's like, what the hell? How dare you ask me about that? It's like we're trying to cover this.
Right. Exactly. It's the biggest story around the team right now. Is the captain's not playing again.
Yeah, he's defiant about it right now. You can see sometimes with the old school coaches, they get defiant, and they get more defiant with the media. Being like, you don't need to, like it's. I'm sure he'd be fine with the fan base, but it's more the media asking the questions he gets, chippy with, and the media taking it personally too. I saw a few media members from Philly taking shots at him. Like, all right, like just let it go. I mean, within a week it'll be back and Couturier will be playing, but they're in one right now. Philly's they're holding on for dear life, and they got to. They had a big win the other night. Let's see what happens here again. But I think they probably have talked about it in-house, don't you think?
Oh, of course. I mean, I'm sure Tortorella, it owes Couturier that. And by my understanding is Tortorella is very forthright with his players. Like, what I've heard anyway. Yeah. Like, I'm sure he's had these conversations multiple times with Couturier on what's happening, why it's happening. And he owes him that. And Couturier has all the right in the world to storm in and say, you owe me an explanation. And I'm sure Tortorella has granted him that. And I don't think anybody believes or is suggesting that he needs to reveal that personal information, but to speak on it a little bit deeper. Like I look at Tortorella like Belichick, like Popovich. It's like, pick your battles. I understand that it can be very draining to deal with the media all the time. And there are, I'm sure, media members in every market, we know it, that probably poke and prod and needle. And from that standpoint, I can understand where coaches are like, leave me alone, or I'm not doing this, or I'm out of here. This is one that if you're in journalism school and you're told to go cover the Flyers for the night, the first question is, hey, the captain's still out. Like, it's not like some...
Grill the coach about it, please.
Yeah, it's not like some wild thing like, man, you're really spicing it up here. It's Couturier's out again. Can you just give us an answer on something about it, please? Like, I don't think it's asking that much. But he's not going to do it, and it is what it is, and we'll see what happens tonight. But, yeah, the Oilers are in town on Saturday. And they got Buffalo tonight, and it feels like they're going to blow the doors off the Sabres tonight. Like, the Sabres have been playing better. They didn't play great in Vancouver the other night, but they beat Seattle the night before. Yet Edmonton's rolling so much right now. We had Eddie Olczyk on yesterday, and Eddie said that one team in the West he wouldn't want to face right now would be Edmonton. Mm-hmm. They're playing so well. Even though they didn't love their game, they still won the other night. Like, they put Pickard in, and Pickard played pretty well and got the job done against Montreal. And now Skinner's in tonight. This feels like a night where McDavid goes off, Draisaitl goes off.
How many is Hyman, like, is he getting, like, is he 50 yet?
46? No, he's 45, I think.
He's more than 45.
Let me look that up quickly.
47? Yeah, sorry, I thought, I
46 he's got. 46.
Yeah.
God, that guy's going to be a 50 goal scorer, man.
Yeah. That could happen in Toronto. He pots 2 tonight.
Oh, yeah.
He rolls through his hometown on Saturday night with the ability to possibly hit 50 for the first time in his career, which, again, is just a matter of time. I think Edmonton plays on Sunday as well. They're in Ottawa or Montreal or something on Sunday.
No, I'm doing that game. It's Ottawa.
So they play in Ottawa on Sunday. So there you go. Yeah, it's probably going to happen by the end of the week. And, we keep talking about the Art Ross and where McDavid's at. Yep, Kucherov 2 nights ago in Vegas had a 4-point night. And he keeps doing that, and McKinnon keeps doing that. And it's like McDavid's rocking, yet these other two guys are continuing to keep pace. Yet tonight feels like a night where I could see McDavid with like a 4 or 5 point game.
Well, he has to. I mean, the Sabres are a team, guys, that UPL has been arguably one of the best goalies in the league since January 1st. If you look at his numbers, they're insane. But Buffalo's a team, like, are they sniffing? Are they too far out?
I think they're too far out now in the East. I
think they're 5. Are they 5 points out? Or are they?
Yeah, they're 5 back at Detroit. They're 5 back at Detroit.
5 at Detroit, yeah.
They're almost at a point where it seems like one more loss and they could be cooked.
Yeah, with only 12 games to go. Like they're that loss the other night. You can't expect them to win every night, but they've been on such a heater that they battled themselves back into it. But you got to get these types of games. You got to get the games you're not expected to win, which would include a night like tonight in Edmonton. But I don't like their chances. All right, Craig Berube coming up. Bill Shakin still to come with the LA Times on this Ohtani story and where it could lead to or where it could go from here. Hour 2 up next. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.